I love rubbish wrestling. I know I'm part of the problem. Didn't even realize the power that I wield. I am Superman. There have been some times during WWE lifespan that have made you want to crumble inside, however. So good for you for keeping with it. You're a loyal Lucy. If you do fancy reliving in some of these horrors, though, you've come to the right place, because I'm Simon Miller. We're gonna do it right now. Number 10, Natalya can't stop farting. The disrespect showed to Natalya throughout the years has been awful. Aside from her family lineage, she is one of the best women's wrestlers ever, and look at the era she has survived. Few can do that. Rather than, I don't know, book her in this way though, WWE has come up with so much dumb stuff, including this. I mean, for some reason, from nowhere, Natty had a flatulence issue. Don't question it, don't ask why. There is no answer. It made Vince McMahon laugh, so he made it happen. Stupid. What's worse was the tease before this, because Natty had just finished a pretty decent feud with Beth Phoenix, and this is what we decided to do as the follow-up, just let off wind throughout 2012. It was all just a bunch of unfunny backstage skits which went nowhere, and don't forget, she wasn't actually farting, so we were using sound effects here. That somehow makes it worse. The ordeal scraped along for a few months before it just stopped. This is one of those times when a story vanishing is a good thing. Natalya is all-time. Treat her as such. Number 9, Kevin Nash and the text message. No, this one is not a children's book, but I will let you try and figure it out for fun. You can be Professor Layton for a while. But when Kevin Nash shocked everybody when he randomly returned to WWE at the 2011 SummerSlam to attack CM Punk, it all came down to a series of text messages. It did cost Punk his WWE title, and Nash said he did this because he received a text message from Triple H telling him to stick the winner. The game then claimed this wasn't true, which means Kevin must have broken into Hunter's office, grabbed his phone, sent a message to himself, then ran to the ring and booted CM right in the face. I mean, that could happen, but honestly, what a pile of nonsense, especially as fans just wanted Punk to be champion. That would have been fine. Punk and Nash then yelled at each other for a while and wished death on the other person, and yet we still ended up with Triple H versus Big Sexy instead. Now this could have worked if CM Punk was kept in the center of proceedings, but he was not. He felt marginalized, people got mad. I get it. Number 8, Mae Young gives birth to a hand. Even though this has been spoken about a lot, what the flub were we doing? Another venture designed to make Vince McMahon laugh, but screw that. This is psychotic behavior. Why is an old woman giving birth to a hand on a wrestling show? I mean it. I'm going to sit here till I get an answer. It was way back in February 2000 and was difficult anyway. I mean, Mae Young was dating and banging Mark Henry as if this was something we all wanted. When yeah, their son was a limb. WWE brought this gag back too at the Raw 1000 show in 2012, when a man dressed as a giant hand turned up to say hello to his fake dad. If any non-wrestling fans saw this, they are allowed to punch you right in the face. What are you watching? And look, I love goofy wrestling. It is for life, but this was just absurd. Proper unhinged stuff. Number 7, that MMA fight. So I am going to disagree with this one. I got outvoted, but who's doing the voice hour? I have the power, I am He-Man. But at SummerSlam 2023, Ronda Rousey said goodbye to the WWE with a worked MMA fight against Shayna Baszler. And to be kind, let's just say the results were mixed. With more information, it sounds like the powers that be just watered this down, but I actually appreciated the effort. It's the direct opposite to the stupid hand stuff we just talked about. I mean, you don't want to do the exact same stuff all of the time, so here and there, just give something new a go. And again, if management hadn't stuck their oar in, maybe this would have been great. We shall never know. As it is, a lot of fans called it boring, but I will always take this over 2 proper badasses doing a wrestling match on a pay-per-view full of wrestling matches. Doesn't mean we have to do it again, but even at the time, I quite liked this. Made the silly mistake to voice it. I got killed then, and I'll get killed now. What are you gonna do? Number 6, Braun Strowman gets bullied by Shane McMahon. I mean, okay, but yeah, surely we could come up with something better than this. It all built to only the second cage match in WrestleMania history, where Shane did take a beating, but it was the level of insult here. I'm not sure why Strowman cared. It was like being told by a kid that you stink. Okay, I'll have a wash, but I'll be alright. Instead, Braun told us how much he'd been picked on as a child, and look, I get it. I was bullied relentlessly in my younger years, but there was just something so disingenuous about this. Somebody just went, that'll resonate, so let's do it. It really was just put in place so McMahon could take his big bump at the show of shows, but it just felt like there were easier ways to justify this. And look, the match was very, very fun. I'm not saying that, but yeah. Maybe don't do this again. Number 5, Chad Gable is Shorty G. The walking human biscuit. I mean, that wasn't the gimmick, but it sounded like it, and what the flub were we doing? Forget that Chad Gable would often be stood next to people that he was taller than. Nobody cared about his height apart from one person, Vince McMahon. It's why we made it the sole focus of Gable's image, as he had to act like the little train that could. Yeah, sure, I am small, but I can go. What a pile of nonsense. What really gets me is that smaller stature wrestlers like Kurt Angle or an Eddie Guerrero had already proven how stupid this was, and yet as soon as the idea was presented, there was no going back. Even Chad said in interviews this was a low point for him, and of course it was. What an incredible misuse of talent. Other wrestlers had to mock him for this too, like they were 7-foot giants, and they were not. This was just bad booking, my friends, and it actually didn't help anybody. Number 4, Shayna Baszler is scared of dolls. I actually forgot about this. Maybe there's a reason. Now, it was during the Thunderdome era, so I'm always happy to give WWE a pass, and look, if Alexa Bliss is playing a spooky wooky character, then yeah, she has to be able to scare people, otherwise what's the point? Execution is everything though, and boy, I don't think this was it. Bliss's new best friend was Doll Lily, and as soon as we discovered Shayna Baszler was terrified of such things, well, that was the end of it. Now, of course, we did choose Shayna because she was a legitimate badass, which meant this was seen as ha-ha. But no, once again, I don't think it helped anybody. There's that sentence again. Baszler was also given some horrific dialogue to sell this, and by the time she was running away screaming, well, it was sort of like a bad horror movie. Again, though, I'm just happy to move on from all of this, as WWE was in a hard place in 2021. You did sort of have to offer something different that wasn't conventional wrestling, because the whole world had fallen off a cliff. Why I can't watch any of this anymore. Just bad memories. Number 3, the dog food. Instantly, you know what I'm talking about, and I mean this. I think the Bloodline dog food angle was a huge reason AEW was able to flourish. It was so bad, we were all desperate for anything else. In case you don't know, although I have done whole videos about the subject like a geek, when Roman Reigns and the Usos were facing Drew McIntyre, Baron Corbin, and Dolph Ziggler, we decided to base the whole thing around dog food. You don't need to overthink this either, it is as obvious as it sounds. Even kids thought this was stupid, especially when Baron introduced somebody dressed up as a giant dog, because Roman Reigns was called the Big Dog. Please end me. Reigns was so done with all this that when the pandemic rolled around, he took time to reset things when he finally returned as the tribal chief. That was the only plus of this, but come on. We need to get this awful before doing the good stuff? I say try again. Number 2, Hell in a Cell 2019. I really do talk about this a lot. I am sorry. I think it does sum up WWE in 2019, though, because it wasn't very good. Everything seemed to be made up on the fly, which is why we got this Hell in a Cell match that ended in a no contest, even though that stipulation is meant to be that we must have a winner. Ugh. Seth Rollins and The Fiend got it the worst as the fans turned on them, so much so Seth had to abandon his very good babyface run and go heel again. Then we got the WWE title on Bray Wyatt before Goldberg beat him. I mean, honestly, I have never met anybody who says a good word about this, and that includes me. I try and be a positive Pete, but bad is bad, and this was bad. Thankfully, it feels like we are far enough past it now we can just forget. But yes, if you are going to book a Hell in a Cell match, I kind of feel like we need to get a victor. Number 1, The Undertaker versus Goldberg. Yep, it's the Saudi Arabia match, and after hearing both guys talk about it, I just feel bad for them. Not that they need or want my sympathy, but I can't help it. We should have rethought things after Bill knocked himself out on the lockers when he was warming up. Then it got worse because he did the same thing on Tina the Turnbuckle, which means yes, he did it twice. The Undertaker by that point was screwed because what could he possibly do? And yes, they then started to drop each other on their heads, and it was genuinely scary. The dead man has now spoken about this a lot, and of course he knows. He's an all-time legend. He's aware when things go awry. It's why we too should really stop talking about it. Everything that needs to be said has been said. The good news is there was no lasting damage, but yes, just once again, let's leave it in the past. It didn't click, and there is no point going through it for a second time.